Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the One Last Cast podcast. My name is Jonathan, and as always, we have Merriel Solesky here. Say hi, Merriel.
Yo, how's it going?
Alrighty, welcome to another
Oh,
episode
sorry
of
about
the
that.
Again, Merriel. Gonna
That's
take it.
my intro.
Gonna take
That's
away your
my intro.
phone. Well, today's episode, we are just gonna dive right into talking about the new Texas trout limits. But before we do that, let me just go ahead and just kind of rip off some of our sponsors right here. Uh, we have Knock and Tail Lures. They're going to be at the fishing show here in Houston upcoming. So if you're looking for one of the best soft plastics on the market, just go ahead and go to knockandtaillures.com or search up KTL or go to the Houston Fishing Show. And uh, um, Michael will show you what he has to offer, some of the best plastics that I've used and caught plenty of fish on them. So check them out. Also, 4A Printing, they do all of our custom stuff, such as towels and buffs and stuff like that. If you're looking for any gear like that, reach out to Aaron, and he will be sure to hook you up. And also want to give a shout out to DSKA, Dirty South Kayak Anglers. If you're looking for a Facebook group to talk fishing and kayaking here on the Texas coast, search up Dirty South Kayak Anglers on Facebook and join up. And also, of course, cannot forget Brittany Solesky, Merrill's lovely wife. If you're looking for commercial or residential real estate here in Houston, reach out to Brittany Solesky. You can reach her at 281-740-0498 or Brittany, that's BRITNEY at grindstonereg.com if for all your real estate needs here in Houston. All right, Merrill. I'm sure by now everybody has heard about the new trout regulations that are supposed to take into effect spring of 2024. If you have not, currently the trout regulations, at least here in Galveston, were 5 trout, 15 to 25, 1 over 25, and then they're enacting now it just got passed on January 25th, I believe, a 3 fish daily bag limit of 15 to 20 inches with one being able to tag, if you can tag it, that's over 30.
Mm.
It's been all over Facebook. It's been all over the news. A lot of people are up in arms about it. I can't blame them. We're trying to the way that we're going to try to make this work is this going to be a 2-part series. One of them, this one is going to be 4. As full disclaimer, with some caveats, both Merrill and I are for the regulations. That's just our opinions. It's just what we believe. We're not right or anything like that. It's just what that's what our beliefs are. So this first episode is going to be, we have Justen Simpton. He's on backstage right now. He's a guide here in Houston, here in Galveston, I should say. And I'll let him do his own introductions. And he's also for it. We're just gonna talk about it. And our part 2 is gonna be, we're gonna go find somebody who is against it. Which, by the way, if you know somebody who's adamantly against it, send us a message. We would love to hear from them, and we'd also love to hear your thoughts on chat, which we are live on facebook.com/one last cast podcast. You can also watch us live on YouTube, so find us on there, or on you can listen afterwards on any of your favorite podcasting platforms. Before we bring Justin up here, Merrill, let's just kind of, quick hitter thoughts on this new proposal.
Yeah, I like this. I think the reason I'm for it is I love catching trout. I fell in love with catching trout. I used to be guilty of the big tailgate full of trout, big old fat stringers, posting them up. A part of me back then cared about what other people thought of me as a fisherman. I lost that. I don't know how to explain it. I was guilty of the big stringers, all the trout, big, all over 20, was a thing because I felt like I accomplished something and I wanted to share it. Um, do I regret that? I do. I wish I could put those fish back in the water because the more that I fished for them, the more that I fell in love with the fish and their patterns and what they do and hunting them down like certain sizes. So, that in that aspect that I kind of feel like I could target trout for the rest of my life and be happy with it with those choices. So the fact that there's something to help them thrive and have more in the water is my opinion on how I feel like it should go, right? How the regulations should go. And I know for a fact, oh, I should say I know for a fact, but I know that my opinion doesn't really matter on the subject, because there's other people with different points of view, different people, and we welcome that, right? With this podcast is not a dictatorship where like, hey, this is right, y'all are wrong, and this is the reason why I feel like my point of view is like, I don't feel like that's right, because I love catching trout, I love eating trout too. I feel like 3 is more than enough for me to eat, um for me and my family. But I know other people, they like to provide for a bigger family, maybe they want the bigger numbers. I know there's a lot of other opinions out there, and to say that this is the right way because I believe it, I feel like that's not right. What, am I using the wrong word? Like, I feel like,
I just typed in chat. I thought we were dictatorship and Merrill's code.
yeah, I know that. But I feel, I listen to some other people, and it's like, hey, this is the way, and it's this way or no way, and this is why. And usually it's a good reason. But I feel like it's a little bit different with fishing. I feel like everybody's entitled to their own opinion. There's no right or wrong answer. I feel like that, right? So if you're strongly for this or strongly against that, just try to keep that in mind. You're not going to hurt our feelings at all with the way you believe and how you feel. We all have opinions, and something led to this. So let's try to get down to that part, and I will stop right there.
Yeah. And I just kind of want to piggyback off that just a little bit before I bring on Justen here. That I was in the same camp. Like, stringer picks were your street cred on the internet,
Oh, that's better said, right? You always have a way of wording that a little better.
Yeah. So yeah, and I fell into that. But looking at the amount of fish I kept from back whenever I fished 3 times a week to now where I fish maybe once a week, uh, I even then I've released 90% of my trout, you know.
And thank you for that, Jonathan.
Yeah, and especially,
So I could eat them. No, I'm just kidding.
but especially the bigger trout. I've always released the bigger ones. I remember the first 25 plus inch trout that I kept. That actually I caught, and it basically was in my kayak, and it was thrashing around, and it hit its head on like really hard on like a ram ball mount. And I think it died or got knocked out. Anyways, it just stopped moving, and I felt so bad. Like, I remember actually feeling sad in my kayak. Like, I should be happy that I caught my first 25 plus inch trout, but I felt sad because I thought I ended up keeping it. So I killed this beautiful 25, 26 inch trout, and I just felt bad.
You should.
And yeah, no, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of like I had a tear kind of forming up in my eye a little bit. This majestic trout that I didn't mean it, I was gonna release it. I accidentally killed it. So I can understand, and I mean, I'm going to throw this out there. I'm from an Asian family. Growing up, we kept a lot of fish.
Hardhead soup coming right up.
I know, I hardheads too. Yeah, we kept hardheads. But I mean, nothing went to waste, and I could have easily fallen into that kind of mentality of like, we just go out there and it's a resource that we use to just feed our family. But for me, it's all about going out there and not only having fun, but learning something and just kind of understanding the fish and knowing that I find joy in saying that I think they're here, they should be here, and putting together the puzzle, and lo and behold, they're here. That's where my joy is. I think we've talked long enough. I definitely want to bring aboard Justen. He's a guide here in Galveston. If you're looking to book him, you can find him at Sunrise Fishing. Just search up Sunrise. That's an SONRISE, Sunrise Fishing on Facebook, and you can find all his rates and how to get in contact with him. I'm going to bring him on now since he's been on the water basically all the time. And of
Yes.
course, he's I don't see him right now, but
hold on.
Uh,
I heard him.
You
no,
can
we
hear
can
me?
hear you. Yeah.
I can hear
Yeah, I
you.
pressed
Just can't see you.
Sorry, I pressed the little camera button. I don't know what the deal is.
Is it turned the other way? There you
There
go.
it is.
So while he works out his issues with
What's
the
it look
camera,
like now? Sorry.
I'm seeing the back of something.
That's weird.
I see. I don't know what I'm looking at.
That is
and
so
It's
weird.
I think the cameras face the other way.
the
Justin.
camera's facing a different way. I think you're backwards.
Yeah. Let me see if I accidentally. Oh my goodness.
That's all right. No worries. Take your time. Get it figured out.
Yeah.
So while Justin's figuring that out, like if you have if you're opposed this, like we really would love to hear. There you go, Justin. That's it. We would really love to hear your thoughts on this because I mean I'm interested, right? I'm interested in to hear that side. Very interested. So it's not like we don't want to hear it. Get out of here, you know? Like I like to hear it. I like to know what other people think and how other people feel about it.
Yeah. And we have actually one comment from Mike. I'm assuming he's for it, but he lives in New Braunfels and it sucks that he can't bring home as much fish. But he'd rather have the fish there so that he can catch. So that's kind of his take on it. But
Right.
Justin, welcome to the One Last Cast podcast. I want to thank you again for joining us. I know you and Merriel go back quite a ways, so I know you guys fish together a lot. So
let me introduce Justin if a lot of people do not. So Justin has been an angler that me and him study the little aspects of where people like the hard parts, right? Where the big winds, the slack tides, the small parts where people don't like to catch fish. Me and Justin spent time, effort, and a lot of that and a lot of headaches on figuring out how to catch fish in the most where it's not optimal to fish, where it's most difficult to fish. And because when we're on schools, that it was fun, right? We had fun, but we were like, okay, why am I not catching fish now? What could I do something, or what could I do different? Do I need to try a new place? Do I need to do something different? Or how do I become a better fisherman? So we were students of the game years back, and we threw different lures. We tried different stuff. We did a lot of studying, and I think that was a small leg into the platform that Justin has built where he's at now, and is a very successful guide, well known. A lot of people like him, good attitude, and he has a ton of knowledge. He's also reads books, magazines, so he has a wealth of knowledge on not just what he's learned, but what he's also read, and to help put pieces and puzzles to his fishing game in our base system, which I am confident to say that you put him in a different base system, he'll figure that out as well. Very proud of him and the angler that he has become today. And he is a strictly, most of the time, I should say strictly, most of the time, he's an artificial fisherman, which poses a little bit more challenge than live bait, my opinion. And welcome to the show, Justin.
Thank you. Thank y'all for having me. Thanks for that awesome, humbling shout out, Merrill. And me, I remember meeting you, and I just want to give you the credit that's due. I remember meeting you and being like, man, he really takes this serious. So that, like you said, you know, that got me going, that provoked me.
Right.
And like you said, I think it was just a cascading thing after that. Just real quick, I was born on the island in Galveston. I had one set of grandparents that lived on Offit's Bayou, so I grew up on Offit's Bayou, and then my other set of grandparents lived in actual Old Bolivar, pretty much like within 3 or 4 miles after you get off the ferry. So I spent a lot of time over there fishing in Galveston, fishing Offit's Bayou.
Horseshoe Lake, Broken Bridge, which is no longer
Yep.
broken. All those wonderful spots that Bolivar has to offer that not a lot of people know about in fish.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's right around the time I met you is when I, really was like, okay, I want to go farther. And I was going to be a kayak guide. I wanted to be a kayak guide. I actually started, me and you were in the course, and I realized it's, with the way my my hip and back was, and it kind of still is at the time, even though I'm 42, about to be 43, I realized kayak, kayak guiding wasn't going to be for me. And so I set my sights on the goal and the dream, to guide from the boat. And it was a blessing. And here I am.
Awesome. Yeah. So as a guide out here in Galveston, and of course, I definitely want to put any words in your mouth, but what are your immediate thoughts about the new proposed not proposed, the past regulations of 3 trout, 15 to 20, and how is it going to affect you?
Oh, one more question to add to that, Justin.
Sure.
So you don't answer those real quick. Also, have you heard opposing views? I have, and I know you probably have too as well. And what was their insight on that? And go ahead.
From the people I've talked to that I trust, that have more experience than me, other guides, other guides, other kayakers and stuff. We haven't been too many kayakers. I really haven't seen those guys, or gals be against it so far. So I just haven't. I've seen it on Facebook, and by seeing it on Facebook, there are real people. I'm not saying just, I'm not, that's not a put down or whatever you want to call it. But anyways, so I've seen it more by reading stuff, but talking to people, I haven't encountered anyone that's really against it.
Yeah,
But
I ran into a couple guides that were at the boat show. Most of the guides, or 3 of the guides, they were like, we target other fish too, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I have one guide buddy, and they're against it. And we didn't really get to talk about it much, but their main thing was their concern with it being worth it to people. And they have a lot of people they take that like to catch trout in numbers. So that's what he said. And that was just over text message, just been really busy. But that was within the last week or two. So we haven't been able to catch up with each other. So so let me say that, but what I have seen, in my opinion, the thing that people are most against is, I don't know if you want to call it government control, or the government taking away our rights, which is totally understandable. And I mean, we can get into that and whenever y'all want and stuff. And that is valid, and just real quick, just on that point, one of the things I do say, I am for it, but one of the things I do say, and a lot of other people I know say that are for it too, is a negative thing is that we're probably never going to get it back. And then I say, we need to be careful, whoever's fault it is and whoever's opinion we think it is, what's driving this and what are the reasons it's happening. But we don't want it to get to like certain parts of Florida where you have a closed trout season, like we do a closed flounder season. So you want me to start talking about like my experience and what I see as far as it, or?
Yeah, I would like to hear very interested in your analysis of the numbers of trout, because I know for a fact I am not the only guide. I'm not the only person out there that's catching trout in numbers. I will admit this, maybe if you do a year from now, the size is not what it used to be the year prior. But then before that, I also had smaller fish. So it almost, one could argue that maybe there's bigger fish in some kind of cycle, or maybe there's something to that puzzle that I don't know. Maybe they move a certain way that the pattern that I'm not sure, or there isn't a pattern. but I mean, I can't say that I'm catching smaller trout now, and that's going to be the result from here on out because of the fishery that we have. Like, I'm not confident enough to say that that's the truth, because we could start catching bigger numbers. I don't know, next month, the month after that. I could start catching bigger ones there. What I have noticed, though, I've caught bigger ones in Corpus last night, or was it last night or the night before? Whatever, Sunday night and Monday night. No, that's not right. Saturday night
into
and
Sunday
Sunday
morning.
night. Sorry, no, I fished both of those nights, and I caught bigger, heavier trout in Corpus. So I mean, I don't know the answer to this, right? I really don't. But to say I'm not confident to say that I'm catching less trout, because that's not true. Or I'm catching smaller trout, and the reason for it being is because there's more people in the water killing fish, so to speak, right? Go ahead.
Well, like we got to talk about a little bit before I came on. It's kind of hard for me because I've been hard to gauge. But again, the premise I said is that my perspective is not enough. No one person's perspective is enough. You realize you got to put, if you want to say people you trust or think alike or whatever, you got to put people in, your circle or whatever you want to call it, and you got to get your information, your data, whatever you want to call it, from that. It's just your one person's perspective is just not enough,
Right.
And so you got the guide talk at the different bait camps and stuff like that. So that's what I go by. But let me start with what I see, and it's kind of a curveball because, like we talked about, I've had to expand. I've had to figure out how to fish different areas. I mean, one of the things that you got to think about as being a guide, especially a new guide, is you got to find your place, with all the guides that are already out there, without getting on top of them, without following them. There's going to be spots that are big enough for you to fish together, but there's small spots too. So you gotta find your place, as a guide, and you gotta build your individual game. There is a network. There are circles. There are inner circles. We could talk about how guides help each other out. I think it's a positive thing, more than you would think. We're not as I'm not going to tell you. Especially when we're not worried about them going and fishing where I was fishing the next day. It depends on the size of the area you're fishing to. But so as a new guide, you gotta find your grind, so that you got to do that. Then you got to expand, because the fish move, because of patterns. Maybe there's yearly patterns, the seasonal patterns. So I've been in that process. So I've found new areas. I found, believe it, new techniques. I mean, the same area that different people could go to, and some people might be doing this thing different or that thing different, and they're thinking the fish aren't there, but you do something different and you catch them. You got that going on too. So point being is that as I've learned more techniques, tried new areas, I've found more fish. So that kind of is almost canceling out whether there's less fish. So could there be, less numbers in the whole bay system? Yes, but I kind of wouldn't know that because I've been having to find more fish. If you understand what I'm saying, it kind of,
Yeah. So I guess
yeah.
what you're saying is you cannot really give an analysis of saying that we're catching less fish or less trout because of XYZ killing the fish to reduce the number that
Well,
is that it? Like,
yeah. Well, I'm trying to say it in a better way. So because I've had to figure out new techniques, so the new techniques and trying new areas is what's allowing me to catch more fish. Okay, it's not that there's more numbers. So I'm fighting against that curve, the curve that there's less numbers of fish. So I can't really accurately tell, because I'm bringing in more fish to the table as I've been guiding the last few years, but that's solely because of trying new areas, different techniques, and some of it could be the patterns. But
it almost would sound like we're like against it, but we're really not against this regulation. But I mean, it's a good point, Justin. Like, same thing with me is, right, I'm trying new things, I'm doing new stuff. Like, I'm not fishing over reefs, right? Like, that's an obvious for me. And I'm glad I do fish over some reefs, but I don't mainly fish over reefs. And I know a lot of guides that I fished with and that I've booked, I want to say 90% of them, we went straight over reefs, or we wade fished over a reef. Like, that was basically the sum of our fishing trip. We'll fish over this reef, we'll fish over that reef, we'll fish over this, and we're moving from we're reef hopping basically. And that's not really what I do, but I did learn how to reef fish. And I'm not one to fish like, if a guy takes me, take all my buddies and we go fish that reef. But so, I mean, I know that there's reef issues, right? We do have a lot more people or businesses oyster farming. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, there's oyster farming.
So that increased, hasn't that? There's a number of things that, if you're fishing the same spots, what I'm saying, if you're fishing the same spots over reefs in the same areas, you might feel the squeeze on trout.
Okay.
You could, right? You could. That's not saying you are. You could.
Right. But basically, okay, let's just take one area. Let's just take my favorite reef spot or whatever. I don't think you can accurately tell a population deal in 2 to 3 years. I think because you got to figure out what's the seasonal patterns, or what's a cycle that is 2 to 3 years long. You got to figure out what that is versus what's actually the population decreasing. So you need a longer time span than that. And I would say, for example, I don't fish the pass itself, San Luis Pass, or near it, hardly at all. So since that's the San Luis Pass is a concentrated area, a lot of it's the same typical patterns, especially for the guides who have been doing it for a long time and they like that area. So if they've been doing that for the last 10 and 5 years, and you got that area, the pass, and just the areas near it, that would be where you would get, I would think, more over a 5 to 10 year period, an accurate description from those guys of the population, because it's real similar. I mean, they'll be in different spots and stuff, but a lot of the features near the pass are the same. So people who guide over there a lot, that would be, a good gauge.
Yeah. And I just wanted to hop in and actually say, a lot of people have, whenever you're looking online, it's a lot of people personalize their own experience as this is the truth because I've experienced it. Sometimes it's true, sometimes not. From my experience, and I'm actually going to say it's a pass. I've been fishing the pass since 2010, 11. And if I were to take my experience and apply my own recency bias, there's a lot of things that go into that, because I'm no longer college student. I don't fish 3 times a week anymore. I fish sometimes only fish twice a month, and that's all I can get out and do. I would, from my experience, the trout population is declining. I could easily say that because I'm not catching that many trout. But for me personally, I understand there's a whole lot of factors that go into that. But I know I kind of got like a Cliff's Notes version of some of the meeting notes, people who attended the meetings and stuff like that, and their data that the Texas Park and Wildlife kind of presented was that the trout populations that they've been saying they've been having, that however they collected it, whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. I don't know their methodology, but they've been showing a decline in trout population, which justifies their reasoning for this this new rules. But going back to what you're saying, Justin, it's a lot of people have just that kind of recency bias and that personalization of what they're experiencing,
Yep.
and they're oh, I've been catching 20 plus trout, whatever, 100 trout a day for the last 15 years. There's nothing wrong with the trout, but you don't really know that.
Yeah.
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 That's a good point. Go ahead, Justin.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'll wait because it might take a minute. I was just gonna say what I do go by though, since I'm for it, what I do go by, but that may turn into a little bit. So go ahead.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm for it, right? We're all for it here. I like Flaco Lerma had a good point when I first posted it. The concern that I have is like, which group of people are making these decisions, and what data do they have, and is that data accurate, and is it another rule just to point to put on us? Is it fair, right? And I'm kind of speaking from the other end of the spectrum, playing devil's advocate here. Like, is there guys or people that represent our base system? I can tell you for a fact that the fishery that I go in Corpus and the one I fish out of Galveston are two totally different areas. Same fish, different techniques, different strategies, different fish. I mean, it's not the same fish, but totally different, estuaries, totally different targeting zones that I'm catching. Thank you, Jonathan. But I feel like I can, is there conservation in down south helping that area, or is it not? We have a deeper base system. A lot of people don't fish deep structure, deep fishing. I do. Does that make me different? Yeah, absolutely it does. Does it make me right? No, I don't think it does. I do have an opinion on it, right? And is there really somebody out there speaking for Galveston Bay? And if they are, like, what facts, what evidence are they using? And is this just a boastful move, or is this truly from the heart a conservation move? That is the big question that I have. And I mean by boastful is somebody there doing it to say, look what I can do, look what I'm doing for everybody else, versus the good part of it that, hey, look, man, we're in real trouble. We need this, right? So I don't know the answer to that, right? I feel like I couldn't even answer that question. That's definitely a can of worms, that statement.
Well, I'm glad you said that. So, Jonathan said, in just a few minutes ago, he said, because you're out on the water all the time, because I'm a guide. So I'm not elevating guides as we're better or anything like that. So we won't say guides. We'll just say people who go to catch speckled trout and redfish. Speckled trout happens to be what we're talking about in their limits. The people who go a lot. So kayakers too, kayak guides, recreational kayakers, but trout enthusiasts who go a lot and are on the water a lot. So for me, I actually, because you said, who's representing us, that's why, number one, I was saying my limited perspective can't, be the perspective of the truth of the whole thing, right? So my fellow guides, even some who don't guide anymore, even recreational trout fishermen who are really serious, they're gonna be the ones that I'm gonna get my data from. And the point I'm making is that I think they are the ones that represent us, because they're out there all the time and they're seeing it. And like I said earlier, those guys who happen to be on the water every week, almost every day, they're all for it. And they are saying that the population is going down. And that's kind of...
I would trust that.
Right.
Because I feel like you're on the water more, right? I would trust a group of people that are on the water a lot more.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean,
Than
there can be some. They could have different opinions and could be biased or whatever, but that's why you kind of want to have a broad field of people that are in that category. But so that but that is what I go by, and that is what I'm hearing from people I trust, from people I don't know. I saw it. What is his name? I saw him on the comments. David C. Dillman, I think, is that? Hope I pronounce it right.
Mm-hmm.
On the comments, I've seen him on Galveston Saltwater and stuff. Matt Holder actually had a post from Steve Hillman, I think it is, from 2017, talking about this very thing. So again, but so then you have the guys that were on the water a whole lot, but that have more experience than me, and so their opinion and their perspective has to count for a lot, So that's where I get my. So when we get as far as like the CCA and how they measure it, okay, well, if you don't really trust the CCA and how they measurement, and to my knowledge, the only way their main way they get their data is the gill nets. And if you don't like that, then I mean, what are your other options? Your other options are the people who are on the water all the time.
I'm sorry, Justin. You said the CCA. I thought it was the Texas Parks and Wildlife to put the gill nets.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
Is that am I wrong about that?
Well, the CCA is the one who the CCA and the Texas Parks and Wildlife are putting the limits down. Yeah, the TPWD ultimately makes the decision. But yeah, you're right. The TPWD is the one who does the gill nets, the surveying, and gives us the numbers and all that other stuff. But yeah, so point being is the TPWD. But if you look on Facebook, you don't see many people, talking much crap about TPWD. I see more people talking against CCA and their salaries and all this other stuff. So that's why I brought up the CCA. But point being, if you don't trust those two, then your other option is the people. Because personally, I think the pool of data you get from all the different guides, I think that's more accurate than gill nets.
I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah. And actually, I wanted to. I think Mike Jones earlier in the chat kind of talked about how this is maybe just a Band-Aid, for just the trout population and just fish in general. And I kind of tied it into what Jay Lee and I have been talking. Jay Lee is another angler here on the coast. He is one of the few shrimpers left here, and in his opinion, and Jay, hopefully I'm not misspeaking for you, but I feel like you've had some valid criticisms of how things are going on. In his opinion, the fishing has been getting worse because of, not because of limits or anything like that, but it's because of like dredging, from the chip channels all up and down the coast, where I can remember even recently, a few years ago, where the south shoreline of West Bay was covered in seagrass, and now it's all gone. And there's so much dredging going on in the bay. From Jay's perspective, and again, I'm hopefully I'm not like misspeaking for you or doing like that, but Jay, he's been out there shrimping on the water, and he's had tough years, and places where shrimp should be, and it's not there. And his thought is on the constant dredging that we have, the estuaries that the shrimp are being, that they grow up in, they're being destroyed. So I think that's something that we have to think about too, where the trout population is declining based upon the data that we have. But is this even enough with the just lowering the limits?
Yep, that's a good point. It's scary in a way.
Because for me personally, I don't mind the regulations, because I am encouraged by the thought that hopefully a few years down the line, we'll be able to really have a good shot at 30-inch trout.
Ooh.
That's my. I'm hoping that sometime down the line there will be some more 30-inch trout for me to be able to go out there and catch, and they'll be out there for me. But if we're not even going to get that because of other
You're allowed
factors,
one over 30 every day, though.
yeah.
So, I mean, you might be throwing back those 29s and a half, but if somebody else catches it when it reaches over 30, I mean, maybe that might be a chance that might not exist. I don't know about the new numbers, right? Like I'm like, how did for me, I think maybe they breed more in that range, that 20 to 29 and a half or 29 and 7/8. I don't know. They lay a lot more eggs than.
Yeah,
But I mean, they say that the smaller ones they breed they breed more and have less eggs. So I mean,
but now if you have the untouched slot of 20 up to 30, and especially your low 20s, I mean, that's a good size. They should have obviously a lot more eggs than 16, 17, 18 inchers. I mean, that could be right. It. That could be the buffer that puts more 30-inch trout. I mean, I'm not for keeping 30-inch trout. I can't say whether I would tag one. Probably not. I would just video the length, the weight, and take a nice picture. But I mean, it may not hurt it as much. It'd be as bad as it sounds if that's kind of the end of their life cycle, and the key breeding area is, the 20 inchers and right above that.
Right. Well, I mean, I think it's good news for most of us. I don't think it's the fisherman that's the issue. I don't think it's the fisher person is the issue. To say that, hey, we had this many trout back then, and keep that number still and increase fishermen, you would say that the trout are not populating and increasing as well as more as the anglers, right?
Yeah,
so I mean, go ahead.
You're saying you can't blame more people because of development in the cities around Houston, and so you can't blame more people fishing. You can't say that's a bad thing. You just can't. Right.
I don't think I know the increase in guides. I know a lot of people think that's an issue. Yeah, they're catching more. That's more fish out the water, but they don't stop breeding. There's still more trout out there. I don't think it's the increase in guides. I think that it's more of, like what Jay said, is more of the another issue than we think we know. We did have a freeze, right? And it did kill some fish. This recent one, we had some back in Clear Creek, back in up there north by Trinity. We had some back there, and then I got a report of somewhere else. I couldn't remember the name because physically I didn't see eyes on it. They told me that there was a small, but our number less than 10. Was it you the one that told me was it you, Justin, that reported you seen some dead?
I saw one stunned sand trout, but the day that we went, and I think it was like 2 days after the tide had come back in, and we saw 45 and that's after your boat's adjusted. When you first put it in, it's not adjusted. So after we got to the location, it was 45 degrees. And the redfish were pretty active. They were more active than the trout. But I saw in that area over by the Harbor Walk area, I saw one stunned sand trout. I literally think he was in the process of dying, but that's it. I didn't see nothing on the bottom. It was clear in a lot of the spots. I didn't see anything in Intercoastal, anything in the Harbor Walk neighborhood. So no, I didn't see any. And then ever since then, I haven't seen any.
Yeah, most of the fish were bait fish. I think some recorded MDLR dude. He recorded a whole bunch of dead redfish in the back of marsh systems.
So where they got stuck shallow.
They got stuck in the marsh. They didn't make it out. I forgot what other reports I got. I'm pretty sure I got some other ones that if I missed it, I apologize. You could post it up on here. But those are the ones that I remembered. Yeah.
But we even with that in mind, with the freeze, obviously other bay systems not named Galveston were affected much worse than what Galveston was.
Yep.
Which is one reason why they had initially they changed the limits to the 3 in the first place, where it was
Yep.
like that line over in Sargent, where it was basically anything south of that line was 3 fish, and everything else was back up to
Right.
5. So
Sorry about
it's
that.
is that we have a dog in the background,
Not me.
but I think it's just something to take in consideration as we're discussing this, as well as in our pre-show, Justin, you were mentioning, and I noticed this too. At the time, I was still working in the retail industry, where the outdoor space exploded during COVID, like exploded.
Oh yeah.
And
Boateries too.
yeah.
Amount of
At the
boaters.
time. At the time, I was, I was with Solesky Sports, and that is nothing to do with the water areas, but we had areas of our industry that increased by 70 to 100% plus, from what
Oh,
was on like a normal, what would be a normal year, and that was sustained over a course of a few years. And I know for sure fishing and kayaking and boating and that it sure happened to that in those industries as well. So
definitely.
Do you believe that the guide fishermen and more people being on the water has affected this number? I think, like I said, I don't think that it's the sole reason. I think there's more to
Oh,
this puzzle than just that. I don't think that this is the reason why we need to do what we're doing. I think there's more to it, but it does help that we do our parts, like,
yeah.
with this new regulation.
Well, what if you put? I mean, what if you put it as a combination of things? I mean, if you add it all up, a bunch of 5% plus 5% plus 5% plus 5% eventually goes up, all connected together and makes a bigger number. So I got a couple things written down. So you got the oyster reefs, the live oyster reefs. You got the number of recreational licenses. You got the number of guide licenses. You see, and you see a lot of people complaining about croaker fishermen, croaker guides, and I've used croaker as a guide before. I can get into my story why I don't. I was kind of forced in the beginning to not be able to use croaker, so that's why I use a lot of
Yeah,
artificial.
don't
But
use croaker, Justin. That's not our way. Not
but I tell you, the croaker guys that I know that are in my circle, whatever inner little circle, or even the outer circle, but are in my circle, they're darn good guides, and it's funny to, oh, you can't catch fish. No, those guys will go and put the hammer down on artificial. So, anyways, but so you got the but the reason why I brought up the croaker thing is not even really my personal opinion, but I see it a lot of uh, people with older guides and people that aren't even guides with experience. They have a negative opinion on croaker fishing. I know everybody has seen somewhere on Galveston saltwater or whatever, ban croaker, make it a protected species, and shouldn't be allowed to use croaker. So, that's probably an hour, 2 hour long conversation just on the croaker thing.
right.
Um, yeah, you got that. And I mean, the oyster reefs, I was talking to Clint Bargy, and he brought up a good point. He brought up the continual development in the Houston area. And it's funny, we're talking about Galveston Bay, we're talking about West Bay, whatever, but we'll say development in Houston. Well, everything, but things end up in the things end up mostly in the San Jacinto River and these Buffalo Bayou for our area, Clear Creek, but a lot of the runoff in the Houston area does end up in Galveston Bay. So you got that. You got fresh, just rainwater, how that affects. So Clint was talking about this, the runoff, And then he was talking about the fresh water and how that affects. And this would be really big. This was a really interesting one that I like that he said this. Clint Bargy, that he said this, was that how it affects their spawning, because really that's important, because when the spawning gets messed up and the spawning goes down, that's your numbers are directly affected.
So salinity plays an important factor in spawning.
Right, exactly.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And I think one of my little positive notes is that, you know, we basically had a drought, you know, this summer coming all the way into November. You know, December is when it really started shifting. We're going into El Nino now. A lot of Chocolate Bayou, Baytown. I was in Clear Lake today, just chocolate brown. But anyways, this summer we had the drought, and you know, the salinity was so high, and I was doing really good up in Baytown. I was doing good north of I-10 catching. I mean, there was beautiful water up there. Almost, to me, almost Florida quality water, not Cancun, the Bahamas, but Florida-like water north of I-10, technically in the San Jacinto River. You know, so the reason I bring that up is that I think so because trout don't just spawn like in the spring. They start in the spring and they can spawn all the way through the end of September, maybe in the beginning of October. So I think we just came off of a good spawn. So I think that's setting us up good. But now we just flipped it, and now we're in El Nino, which is usually rainier. And this is just kind of I want to say it's an educated guess. I think we're this rain every week, and even in the spring, getting back to heavy rains, but I think it's here for a while. And I think we're going to have a rainier spring and a rainier summer than last year. I think there's positives and negatives to it. But point being, we just had a really salty time. I think that helped us out in the spawn.
Man, I know that we can continuously talk about this. We still have more time. But
okay, good.
Yeah, no, we're gonna keep going.
Yeah, we're definitely all three of us are real passionate trout fishermen. So yeah, that's what probably makes our opinion a little biased, maybe. I would think so. Because I mean, obviously anything good for trout would be definitely to put trout back into the water.
Go
ahead.
Just a few words real quick. Also, we need to mention that I'm not exactly sure when it started. I know when I was a kid, I remember seeing the redfish farms, or whatever you want to call them, hatcheries in Lake Jackson. But just real quick, we also have organizations. I think Texas A&M is part of it, TPWD obviously, but they're raising, I was reading earlier, and this is trout, reds, and flounder. They call them finfish. 250 million babies are released by just us doing them in tanks and places. So we've been doing extra to add to the population. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, if you actually haven't, if you haven't been to the Sea Center, Texas, which is in Lake Jackson, a lot of their at least around this area, a lot of the farming and raising of the fingerlings of those trout, flounder, and redfish that happens there. I would definitely recommend you check it out, because it's a pretty awesome place to be, just to learn more about our fisheries and learn about their process. I know they have like those giant ponds in the back that they have like redfish, and I really wish I could fish those, but it's, you know, I think Jay and a lot of people in the comments have mentioned, which, by the way, we are live, this podcast is live every other Tuesday at facebook.com/One Last Cast Podcast. You can also find us on YouTube at One Last Cast Podcast. Join us, ask questions, give us your thoughts, and we'd be happy to have you. But you know, everything, I think it also goes back to like that recency bias that we talked about earlier, where our one person's experience doesn't actually make the whole thing. But you know, it's like everything is cyclical. It's supposed to be in nature. It's supposed to be cyclical, but we don't live long enough to find that cycle. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, our understanding of fish and everything like that, we have data to back it up. They do the gill nut surveys, but eventually, what's to say that this isn't a natural cycle? I'm not saying it is, but what's to say this isn't a natural cycle where the population kind of slowly declines, and then 30 years from now it stabilizes again and goes back up. We don't know that, but also, of course, we want to make sure that the trout doesn't go the way of the dodo and we just completely wipe it out and they never come back. I also see that. So, and Jay keeps saying save the estuaries. So, but it's a lot of, I know a lot of data went into this, and I just don't want to discount it, because I also, at the end of the day, I want my son and their son to be able to enjoy this fishery. At the end of the day, that's all I really care about. And as long as that happens, then I'm okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, how about you, Justin? Any words that you like to end the note on, and how you feel about the regulations that are being brought upon us? You feel like they're justified, they're fair?
I mean, sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, go ahead. No, that's fine.
To piggyback off of what Jonathan was just saying, I mean, you got to ask yourself if you're upset about it, or upset, concerned, get involved somehow. Okay, get involved. And the point being is that if you don't trust, or which is totally fine, or like the data and the way they're getting the data, see if you can help, see if there's another way. Be the person that comes up with some new way, better way to get data so we can get more accurate. Because my personal opinion is I'm probably biased, and I call them kill nets sometimes instead of gill nets. I hear lots of stories of, I've never run into or seen a gill net in all my time on the water out there. I've seen lots of guides talk about it. They found a gill net, or they ran into it, it got caught in their prop or whatever, and they're like, oh, the dead fish. Or I've even heard of guys wading in certain areas, weren't even in a boat or a kayak. They went on from land, and they were there when the TPWD brought it in, and they said the amount of fish that were dead. And so I always was just kind of like, man, that doesn't, why are we killing fish to count fish? Point being, if there's a better way, then you can help, find that better way. But until we have a better way, you kind of have to go by what we do have until we have a better way. So it actually is a kind of a gotcha, because it's still data,
So I mean, that's what brings the an argument. It brings a specific argument. Was this done by data, or was this done by peers that voted for we should do this? Because my understanding is it's not necessarily the data that, hey, these are the numbers we get and we need to drop down to 3 this size and 1/30. My opinion, or my thought was that this was voted upon our peers to do that, which makes a totally different argument than this is purely data science and I'm not catching enough fish, right? I think
all of their biases.
Yeah, so I think that this was voted upon all of other fishermen, I shouldn't say guides, but other fishermen in the water, and exactly who voted on this, like, or who pushed this agenda. I could be wrong, right? That could be wrong. This could have been on pure solely data, but I thought I read an article or something along the lines that said this is what the people in our area voted for or pushed, because not because of what numbers they got, because they were going to stick to the 5, but somebody wanted to change the limits and regulations to what we have right now, and that was pushed
in order to fit an agenda.
Right. So it sucks that I brought this up at the last hour, right? Like the last minute of the hour, but I could be wrong, right? I don't know, right? There's a
And you
lot
have
of
the
questions. There's a lot of questions that I don't know, that we don't know. So that sucks that we leave on that note.
No, well,
Maybe somebody does know, and they could put that comment on the
well,
podcast, or they can bring that to our attention. That could be totally left field.
it seems like at this point you would need not one side or another. I'm not condemning any organization whatsoever, because this is an if, and it's just real quick. If, with social media and things not being able to be hidden very well, different scandals or whatever you want to call them. Point being is you would need at this point, if people, this CCA is corrupt, TPWD is corrupt, or whatever, you would need some kind of leaked documents or some kind of whistleblower to come out. Then you would know. But to be honest, until then, it's speculation.
I think that's data they can give us, Justin. I'm pretty sure that this was voted on, or this was.
Oh no, I'm just saying, like, if I'm talking about people who say, like, it's just so corrupt, and
Oh yeah, I mean,
yeah, you would need an inside leak or something.
Right. That's why I totally
in order for that to
misunderstand
be
that.
proven.
Yeah.
and if we look at all of these, all the comments, in our page, a lot of people are very, very passionate about this. The people are saying, like, there's somebody's benefiting from this, and I'm sure somebody's benefiting from this.
I know I'm going to benefit from this because
I don't think the comment was talking about that. It was more of a conspiratorial way that some entity or another is going to be benefiting from the decision, which it probably is, because that's how politics works. And whether this whether you believe it or not, but any decision is probably born from some political will. And
running
you
for
can go down
president
that
or something.
you can go down that rabbit hole all you want, of, like, the data was fudged or whatever. But based upon, there's a survey, I'm looking at a slide that the Texas Park Wildlife during their presentation did, for recreational anglers for the 15 to 20 slot, 3 fish bag limit, and 1 over the max, which they proposed. 47.4% of the surveyed recreational anglers supported that, and 54.1% of guides supported it. And of course, we can go into whether this is valid data or not, because
that's not the data I'm referring to. I'm referring to the numbers, right? Like was it numbers that made them to push this proposal, or was this people that pushed this proposal because they wanted it?
Yeah. So my understanding is that the proposal came because of the data, the show.
Oh,
that's the way that's the way that I understand how this came about. And of course, it's just, and then and then Flacco's like, people push for it. Yeah, of course, there's always going to be some sort of angle from some people, some in the know people who are going to push for whatever they want. Yeah, and so David, he posted that Texas Park Wildlife had an open public comment, which they submitted their they submitted, you could put whatever, and allowed people to answer this survey that they had. And let's see, and of course he's pulling from memory, and this sounds about right from what I remember. They had 2,800 responses, 1,500 surveys sent to guides, plus 10,000 random surveys, with only less than 1,000 responded back. Which, if you're ever into data analysis and surveys, this is absolutely right. It's one of the problems with surveys is, obviously the more people you get survey, the better data you get, but also that presents more problems with you have methodologies associated with that. And of course, there's always going to be people who's like, I didn't get the survey. Well, it's supposedly random. But anyways, we could talk all day about this. And I think we're probably gonna do that, Justin,
Ooh.
we may bring you back on for another one because there's just so much to unpack here. And I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. I definitely want to appreciate everybody on here talking to us and just sharing your insights. This is a contentious subject, and it's going to be with us supposedly in the spring. I saw somewhere it's probably going to be late March, and we'll just see how this goes. But before we hop off here, Justin, if somebody wants to get with you and you show them a good time here in Galveston Bay, how would they get a hold of you?
I think Facebook Messenger is a good one. Even my personal, I'm more active on my Justen Simpton, spelled with an E. I'm more active on there, but I do keep the prices and everything and fish pictures updated on the Sunrise with an O, Sunrise Fishing. And then my number is 832-353-0226. You can always text me directly. And just real quick, I wanted to say I'm in a training course that we talked about. So I'm going to be devoting as much time within reason as I can to that. So I'm going to have a thinner availability coming this spring and summer. But I'm going to try to take advantage of that since I'm going to be making my own schedule with this new gig I'm doing. I'm going to try to, as best as I can, take advantage of that and be more selective about the days, good weather, good conditions. Wouldn't we all like that? But to have more specialized trips and maybe more artificial trips. I have a passion for doing top water. So I'm going to have a little bit less availability, but I'm going to try to be more strategic about the days that we do go this spring and summer.
Awesome. Thanks again, Justin, for joining us. And for those of you who are listening, this is the One Last Cast podcast. We are live every other Tuesday. You can find us at facebook.com/One Last Cast podcast. You can also find us on YouTube. Oh, and I forgot to mention, and I did not write it in my notes here, but we actually have a website. If you go to onelastcastpodcast.com, you can find all of our episodes there. Also some blogs. I'm going back to writing my reports on there. So, if you didn't know me before, back in the day, I was a writer, and I'm still a writer. Writing is still my trade, and I'll be writing my reports on the One Last Cast podcast, and you can find that there. Also check out some of our cool sponsors on there as well. So just to kind of give a rundown, Knock and Tail Lures, looking for a soft plastic, one of the best soft plastics here that we use. Knock and Tail Lures, it has a rattle, a paddle tail. It just flats out works, and they're awesome. So if you want to find them, go to knockandtaillures.com, or you can look up Michael at the Houston Fishing Show upcoming. Also, we have 4A Printing. They do our custom gear, such as our buffs and towels. If you're looking for something like that, go and talk to Aaron. He'll hook you up. Also, Dirty South Kayak Anglers. If you're looking for a Facebook group, search Dirty South Kayak Anglers. They're an awesome group to talk kayaking and fishing with. And finally, Brittany Solesky. If you're looking for residential or commercial real estate here in Houston, reach out to Brittany Solesky. You can reach her at 281-740-0498 or at Brittany, that's Britney, at grindstonereg.com. Merriel, before we hop off and end the conversation for today, let us hear some encouraging trout story that you have from recently.
I'm sorry. I thought you were going to say some words of wisdom, and I didn't prepare for that either. Say that again. You think I'd be prepared now that you always say that at the end of the show?
Yeah.
And I
okay.
still
Yeah. Give us
guard.
some words of wisdom for those of us who are listening right now.
Well, I told you I didn't prepare for that either.
Well, prepare now.
So nothing. I have nothing. You guys, I hope you enjoyed this topic. Very passionate about this topic. I want to applaud the guys that pushed this, and at the same time, I want to respect the people that opposed it as well. I have much respect for the daily fishermen to the once a year to twice a year, or maybe more or less than that. I respect all you guys, and we appreciate you tuning in and listening to our show.
Awesome. Well, that's been the One Last Cast podcast, and I just saw this, so I'm going to mention it. If you're looking for a decal, we have stickers. I believe, Merriel, you and I will be at the Houston Fishing Show.
Oh, you're going to make the fishing show?
Yeah, I'm gonna go for a day or two. So
Okay, good. You can hand
yeah,
out
so
decals. You
yeah,
can
I'll
throw
be
them out like
so
that.
yeah, just find me and I'll just throw them at your face. So but thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.